everyone, this is Samantha, and I'm here to talk about Ava Frost article called Spin Selling, the Ultimate Guide. Now Aja, as I think, Aja wrote this article as a summary for Neil Rackham's 1988 book called Spin Selling. And from this article, I was able to pinpoint 3 important points to me that I think are the most important parts from this article that I plan on using in future sales presentations, and that I hope anyone listening could also use in future sales presentations. And these points for me are the importance of deep investigation, the importance of gathering background information on prospects or anyone you're trying to sell to, and the importance of knowing when and when not to make a sale. So basically, everyone knows the basics of spin selling, which is that you question using situational, problem, implication, and need payoff questions to understand the buyer. What they don't really think about is the importance of really getting down into investigating the needs, wants, criteria, whatever it is that these prospects, these buyers, are needing at that time. Something called, or what Aja calls pain points in her article, or things that are really important specifically to this buyer. And so through investigation, the seller can understand these pain points and then use this information to make a sales pitch that is catered specifically to that buyer. And so essentially it's not a canned presentation, so every single buyer or prospect that a salesperson goes to, they need this investigating questioning in order to specifically attack, I guess you could say, that buyer. And that's really the way that any salesperson would become successful, is not having their specific or their spiel, their canned report on here's what I do, here's my product, this is why it's great, you want it, yes or no. It's going to this buyer, building trust between them, understanding them specifically, and then showing them why your product is what they really need. And so in her article, Frost even talks about how investigation is the most important phase in spin selling. And what's his name? Rackham in his book says that a top salesperson would ask 4 times as many implication questions than their peers, which means implication questions are the kind of questions where the seller is asking the deep questions, is saying, if you could make so much more money a month, how would that affect you? And these are the kind of questions that any salesperson really needs to be specific about, that really they need to focus most of their sales presentation on. Which leads me into my next important topic, the importance of background information. So before going into any kind of prospect sales presentation, sales call, or whatever, the representative, the seller, needs to know everything they can about that particular buyer. Anything like what their product is, what their distributors are, anything that they can find either online or through articles, through writing, whatever that they can, they need to be able to know that information beforehand. And this is specifically because the buyers don't want to do your homework for you, as Frost says, is they don't have any time or patience to answer questions that you could have gone onto their website and found out by yourself. And also, these kind of questions take up valuable time that can be used for more important questions, from implication questions instead of problem or situational questions, and even need payoff questions are more important than those. And us, as of today, especially us younger ones who know how to use Google and such, we have so many more resources than anyone like Neil had beforehand, where they didn't have the databases, they didn't have the articles, they didn't have websites to go to. We have this kind of ability to go online and find this information. Even Facebook could help, and we can use this information, and you should use this information before you set up any kind of meeting with someone, because this saves time. And this lets the buyer know that you're an informed seller, that you're someone who's going in knowing what they're doing and knowing them and what they need. So definitely when you are making these sales presentations, use your resources, any resources that you can, to find background information. And lastly, and very importantly, any seller should know when and when not to make a sale. So this is important because hasty actions by you could lead to rejections. It could lead to objections, which could then lead to rejections. And you need to know when your buyer is making advances, as Frost calls, which are pretty much signs from your buyer that they are willing to commit, or at least more willing to commit than they were at the beginning. This could be things such as signing up for a free trial, or even just looking at your price page. These are signs that the buyer should or the seller should recognize as go ahead, or at least you're going in the right direction when it comes to closing a sale. But before you get any of these, you shouldn't try to close a sale, only because if you run into, say, you are selling a product and you try to close a sale, and the buyer says, well, what about in this situation? What would you do? And you haven't reached that point in your sales presentation, and you're not prepared. You don't know that part of what part that your buyer wants from you, then you're caught out. You don't know what to say. You are lost. And so it's important for any kind of representative or seller to first use investigative questioning, and so that there are less objections, or even if the salesperson does enough of a job, they cover all objections that the buyer could even think of before they even get to ask it. And that's really the kind of best situation for a seller, where they've covered every single kind of topic that the buyer could ever think of. They can't think of any reason why they shouldn't buy, and so they do. They buy after that, and that's when you make the close. When you have covered everything, when you have deeply invested, not just because you think you can make a sale. And so really, you need to look for those advances. You need to make sure you've covered everything, that you're prepared to make that close before you try. And so this concludes my evaluation on Aja Frost's article or summary on the 1980 book, Spin Selling. And there might be more important parts or points that someone else could have thought of when reading this article, but these are the points that were really important to me and that I feel like I could use in future sales presentations or in future dealings in sales. And I encourage anyone listening and any other future sales representatives to use this kind of important information, which once again covering is the importance of deep investigation, the importance of gathering background information, and knowing when and when not to make a close. Anyone who pictures themselves having a future in sales can use this information to further themselves as well. And after reading this article, I look forward to reading all of Neil Neil Rockham's 1980 book, Spin Selling. I do plan on reading it after this, and I hope it's a good read, but I'm predicting that it is going to be a good read. So, thank you everyone for listening. Have a nice night.